And welcome to our YouTube channel. And what a great day to sew something wonderful. I'm Kia with Kia B. What a great day to sew something wonderful. I'm Kia with Kia B. And today we're going to be working on a really easy quilt pattern, and it just takes very few materials. And so I'm excited to make these with y'all. You're just going to want to make one for every single lady in your life that you know. I have been waiting all month for this box. I just kind of feel like it's my own little Christmas present that I get to have a couple of days early. I want you to grab not your favorite cup of tea, but your favorite tea vintage cup, and come in a little closer. Let's take a look at the materials that we're going to need and what our project is today. Hello, and what a great day to sew something wonderful. I'm Kia with Kia B, and I'm so happy to be back here today. We are going to be working on a super fun project that we were so blessed to be a part of. We got to help launch in a blog tour Shari Butler for Doohickey Designs. She launched her own fabric line with Sweet Bee Designs, and we got to be a part of that. We were given a fat quarter bundle and said, make whatever you can make with this. And so I made the cutest quilt pattern, and I'm going to give you all that stuff for free today in our video. I'm going to walk you through one block of the entire quilt. And with a fat quarter bundle, you can make a beautiful quilt. Her fabric actually is so adorable and has lots and lots of little sayings on it about love and Mr. and Mrs. and save the date. And so we are calling this quilt pattern Beards and Bows. And I think you'll see why when all of your blocks come together. So here, kind of folded up, is our quilt that we made, and I know you won't be able to really see blocks very well, but we are going to insert some pictures for you from our blog tour. You can also head on over to kiab.com and you'll be able to see those there. This was at the beginning of May, towards the middle of May, and there are several other ladies that were able to get a fat quarter bundle and make a quilt, and everyone came up with such great ideas. So for today's tutorial, you are going to need 2 fat quarters, and we've just picked some random scrap fat quarters that I had here in the studio. You are going to need your typical sewing supplies, so a ruler, a rotary cutter, some thread, and your sewing machine. So why don't y'all come in a little closer. I want to go over what I've written out as a pattern, and then we're going to start cutting and assembling our block. Okay, like I said, you're going to need 2 fat quarters for 1 block. And so when we received our fabric, I just paired up different color combinations that I really liked, and they all coordinate so well together that wasn't hard at all. Today I've just grabbed, like I said, 2 scrap fat quarters. So I've just got like an orange, burnt orange, and a navy blue, and then I've got like a periwinkle color here to accent it. Now you do have lots of scrap, and so out of each fat quarter, so you can kind of play around with your blocks. If you want to make more, if you want to make more of a scrappy look, you can get more blocks out of it. Or if you want to play around with the actual sizing of the cuts, you can make bigger or smaller blocks and make more of them. So let me kind of go over with you the pattern that we've created. Let me kind of go over with you the cutting instructions before I actually show you cutting up the fat quarter. So from each fat quarter, you are going to need 1 9.5 inch square and then 8 3.5 inch squares. And what that's going to do, it's going to make a beautiful, beautiful block that is commonly known as the London Bridge block. And so it's got this bridge work here in the middle, and then these large half square triangles on the other side, on either side. And so why don't you come in a little bit closer, you can take a look at my terrible drawing and kind of show you how to cut up this fat quarter. Okay, so here is a little bit better picture of what our block is going to look like. We've got this ladder work here, bridge work in the center where these are all half square triangles, and then we've got these large half square triangles here. Now for each fat quarter, like I said, you will need 1 9.5 inch square and 8 3.5 inch squares out of each fat quarter. And so here I've kind of terribly drawn out the easiest way to cut those up, and then you've got lots of scraps around here. So let's go ahead and just cut up our first fat quarter. I think kind of cutting it up and talking through it will really help you to understand what we're doing. So first I'm going to lay out my fat quarter, and I just picked, like I think I've said this twice now, just some scraps. This is a Crayola Riley Blake scrap, and so I'm just lining up my selvages here so that I can get a good straight cut off the end. Okay, so our first cut that we're gonna make is our 9.5 inch square. So I'm gonna flip this around here, and I'm just gonna measure out 9.5 inches and go ahead and give that a good cut there. Okay, we've got our 9.5 inch square there, and then next we need two 3.5 inch pieces. Something I learned just really even just a few months ago is to make sure that you're using your ruler as guideline and not this mat. These mats can often be just a hair off, but it really does make a difference in your cutting. So the next thing we want to do is straighten out these raw edges. I'm just going to line both of my 3.5 inch strips up and make a clean cut. What that means is I'm going to take both of these ends here and line them up on my ruler straight, and then just make a clean cut here. There we go. Now I will flip this around and I'll start my 3.5 inch squares from here. With every cut I'm getting 2 because there are 2 layers here, and so I'll just set those to the side and I will make 8. I've just got this little bit of scrap. And then now we're gonna do the same to this. We're gonna line up our edge there, making sure both of these are straight. Make our clean cut over on this end and then measure out 9.5 inches. So then from our little blue fat quarter, we have 1 9.5 inch square and 8 3.5 inch squares. The next thing that you'll do is you'll cut all of these on the diagonal. Don't be scared. I know this means that you're gonna sew a lot with the bias, but I'll give you some tips on how to do that well. Go ahead and get your other fat quarter and we'll get that cut up. Okay, so at this point you should have 2 of each of the colors of large 9.5 inch square, half square triangles, and then you should have 2 stacks of the 3.5 inch half square triangles. And so it looks kind of scary, right? Because all of these are bias edges. But let's go ahead and assemble or lay out the assembly of our block. And then as we get to the sewing machine, I'll give you a couple of tips and tricks that I like to use when sewing on the bias. So you actually, you can save 2 of your large half square triangles for another block. What I did is I put those to the side, kind of made 2 piles, and then that served as another 2 blocks later on, so I didn't have 2 of the same fabrics together. Okay, so you'll want 1 at a corner and 1 in the other corner, just like this. I know I'm kind of a little bit out of frame here. So we're gonna do this. And then the next thing to do, so you can see, let me show you. You can see this arrow is pointing this direction. And so what will happen is all of your blue triangles will point in the same direction. They'll all point toward you, okay? So let's look at that. Let's look at that a little bit more closely. You are gonna take 4 of these and line them up here with the opposite large color of triangle here. All right, so there's these. Okay, so you've got 3 with their bias edges touching the bias edge of your large half square triangle. And then you've got 4 here. And what it's gonna start to look like is you're making like a small pinwheel right here. So let's take our patterned one here. And our pattern is pointing this direction. And so we want all of our pattern to point that direction. And we're gonna slide these in here. So all the bias edges should be touching each other, always. That's what's gonna make our squares here, our block. Okay, just a few more here. When we're all finished, I'll see if we can zoom out a little bit and show you the block laid out properly. Okay, so then you've got stacks of these left over. You're gonna separate those with their coordinating large triangle, and you're gonna put that in a pile for the next block to match up with a different fabric in the line. So then you're using 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of each color. Okay, so we've got this, and then let me see if we can zoom out just a little bit so you can get a better view of the layout here. So here's a little bit better angle with our layout here. Now the way that I did these is I started in this bottom corner here and I would pair these together, okay? So I did this, and contrary to very popular belief, I don't pin my bias edging. I know that's crazy, but when we get to the sewing machine, I will kind of explain why I don't do that. Okay, so I did that, and then I'll flip each of these over. So you're working to make this these center squares, okay? So I'm gonna do that, and then I will go pick these all up, and I'll go sew all 4 of those. Then I will come back, and if these were sewn together, then they're pressed open, then I'll attach this one. And then I'll attach this one, and then I'll attach this one, and then coming back you attach this one and this one, okay? So let's go ahead and go to the sewing machine. Let's do that. After our blocks are laid out, let's go ahead and go to the sewing machine and start really sewing all of these together. As long as you're making sure that your triangles are all pointing the same direction, so all the print are pointing one way and all the solid are pointing the other way, you really cannot mess this block up. It really is easy. I know it looks very complicated, but it's really not. So let's head over to the sewing machine. Let's get this worked out as to how we are gonna sew, and I will give you some tips on sewing on the bias. Okay, so you've got your 2 small half square triangles here. Some tips I have. First, use your walking foot. This will pull the fabric together at the same time without really stretching that bias. If you pull too hard on this bias, you're going to have a wonky block, a wonky square, and you really do not want that. A lot of people say that to sew on the bias, you have to pin. I don't pin, just because that's more manipulation of this, and I don't know, that's just my opinion. The next thing is to take your stitch length down to a 1.5 or a 2.0. I like 1.5 because it's small, and to really slow down as you're putting your stitches in. So I still keep it a 1/4 inch, but I will definitely just go very, very slow as I'm starting this process. And I'm very careful not to pull or push the fabric at all, just to kind of rest my fingers here, guiding it in, making sure that we're staying at a good pace. There we are. So that's our first one. And chain piece. You can chain piece all 3 at the same time. So I'll just kind of line these up and go to the next one. The next thing that I suggest is to only press it with your iron 1 time. So when your block is completely finished, that's when I would heat press it. We got a really handy tool, maybe last month or 2 months ago, I believe, from Violet Craft, and I think Clover makes one as well. It is a pressing roller, and those come in handy when you're trying to finger press here at the machine. You know, just because then you're not getting up, and this is only getting exposed to the heat 1 time, and that's as the block is finished. So I am just guiding this in here. Come on. There we go. Okay, so you're ready to pull that off. Now, another tip I have for you is so many people use this tiny little cutter on the side of their machine. When you do that, when you're chain piecing, just even by pulling the threads on a bias, cut, anything, when you pull, you're actually going to pull the threads from that. So when you can, please try and use just some snips or just your little rotary cutter. I've got my rotary cutter sitting here, so I'm going to use that. And just snip those threads apart. Okay. Now what you'll want to do is open this, and for these seams, you are going to open them completely. There are a lot of cross points in this, and so some of the seams we're going to open, some of the seams we're going to push to the right or the left. My next suggestion is to, as soon as you've got this, put it back in your block placement, just so you keep everything organized and nice and neat, so you don't get lost. So I've just got my cutting mat sitting here with my block and my rotary cutter, and as I press these open, I'm going to lay them right back in the order that they go in. Next step is to join rows. So you're going to work kind of up the diagonal. Let me kind of show you our picture here again, and this might help. So I've just sewn all of these center squares here. I'm going to take this one and I'm going to attach this half square triangle to this one. Then I'm going to work on this row next. I'm going to attach this one, and then I'm going to attach this one. you will start to see at these center points, it's going to start getting very bulky. So when we get to that point, I will show you some pressing. So this is really our first row. So don't fight the nature of the way that this wants to lay. This wants to lay open to your little half square triangle piece. That's what way you're gonna press it. So I would just finger press it or take your little ruler and do that. And so then that's actually our first row there. Don't worry about trimming this stuff off yet. We're gonna do that all the way at the end. So we've got that first row and then just continue. So we're gonna attach this one to this side. And one more time, let it fall where it's going to. So your seam should actually be going away from the center half square triangle. So your piece is going to look like that. We've got these bias edges here, so be careful not to pull or push. Just know this bias edge is going to go against this larger blue colored half square triangle. So go ahead and work through your rows. You should have 2 more to do after that, and then we'll talk about assembling your rows. So at this point your block should be laid out like this. You've got 1 row, your 2nd row, your 3rd, and all the way here at the top your 4th row. This is where you're going to want to go and trim off all of your dog ears and extra thread. So I'm just going to kind of scoot everything aside here and do that. As I'm doing this, we were so very blessed to be a part of Shari's blog tour. If you have not looked at any of her things, she is Shari Butler from Doohickey Designs. I have reviewed her binding babies before. Last year for my birthday, my parents got me a whole family of little binding babies, and she and her husband, they make those, and they are just phenomenal. If you're doing your binding without one, you are doing it wrong. You need to go look at her website. It is just super, super cute. I knew when I was working on this, and when she had first asked me, I thought, oh yes, I've been wanting to write a pattern, but I'm absolutely terrible at it. And so I thought, okay, I'm just gonna sit down and I'm gonna scribble out some things and, you know, just try and see what I come up with. And so I have since 2 months ago when she asked me, I have purchased a quilt design software, but I haven't figured out how to use it yet. And so I'm still chicken scratching some patterns. So I knew that I wanted to bring y'all some type of free pattern that you could just watch a tutorial and get all that you need from that tutorial. So many times I do sew throughs and I can't give you the dimensions of cuts, and I can't give you this or that because it comes from a different designer. So I was really happy to be able to come up with this and create this block using only 2 fat quarters. That really excited me. Okay, so now that you've got all those dog ears, here's when you finger pressed your half square triangle away from your center square here, you are automatically going to be able to nest these seams together. Now, just remember, it is still a little cattywamped, and so what we're gonna do is we are gonna take our first row here and we are going to just flip it straight over. That's gonna nest these seams so nicely. And what I did is I nested those seams and I just start sewing from this end all the way to the end here. That will leave some dog ears, but we will take care of those at the very end. So you're going to do that to that set. You're going to pull this third and fourth row down, and where these seams nest, you're going to make a little pinwheel here. You are going to do the same there. Alright, so as you start to open that, you really see a lot of bulk right here in the center, so just be aware of that. With quilting, that will definitely help. And then you've just got your last 2 rows, still making sure, I'm always checking. See, I'm always checking that these prints are going the same direction and these solids are going the same direction, or one print is going one way and the other print is going the other way. Just always make sure you're pointing in the right direction. I'm going to nest these last seams and give this a quick 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, so here is what this looks like, and I just automatically push mine away from it, so all of my seams are actually pointing the same direction. If you take your time a little bit more, your points will definitely line up. Mine looking a little rough there for a second. Okay, we're still not pressing yet. We're gonna wait all the way until our block is completely finished. So now what you can do is take your ruler and cut off these little dog ears on the side here, and I will do that. This is a great time to make sure that everything is really lined up and straight. You can see it just cuts away hairs. Right, flip this around and do the same on this side. We're just doing a little straightening here. We don't really have that many dog ears. There we go. So the last thing to do in our block is almost finished. We just need to attach these large half square triangles. You are going to attach them to the opposite color. So the blue gets attached to this orange and the orange gets attached to this blue. The best thing to do is really just take this. I've had you cut it bigger so you have lots of overhang. So even because I don't pin, I take that into consideration. Because I don't pin, I want to make sure and give this bias its breathing room, right? I don't want to touch this. I don't want to manipulate it too many times, but as I'm taking it through my machine, I want it to be able to do what it wants to do and not what I'm telling it to do, if that makes any sense at all. And then when we come back, you'll see it's quite a bit larger than our bridge unit here. And that's okay, because we're going to trim this block down. So I'm going to head over to the sewing machine. I'm going to attach this side. Then I'm going to open it this direction, and then I'm going to attach this large half square triangle as well. All right, so we've got these large half square triangles opened up here. at this point, I would head over to the iron. I am going to spray starch this like there is no tomorrow. You really want to set these in starch so that they don't begin to wear and tear as you have them on your design wall, as you're laying out your quilt pattern. You don't want these to move or stretch or manipulate at all. So another really important thing as you're pressing this, don't lay your iron down and iron that. Don't lay it down and scoot, and then scoot this way and then scoot this way. Even as I'm doing that with my hand, I'm cringing a little bit. Press. So lay your iron down, hold it there, lift it up, lay it down, hold it there, lift it up, lay it down, hold it there. What you're gonna do is, that is the difference between ironing and pressing. With pressing, you're pressing the fibers of the cotton where they are at. So you're not bending, you're not stretching, and you're not pulling those threads. So we've got our block here. After you've got it all starched and ironed, you are just going to even this out. So let's back up a little at this point and let's go ahead and look at the block as a whole. Okay, so here is our block. I think I love this block. I really, really do. So this is your beard and bow. Let me explain to you why we did that. Shari's line is absolutely beautiful. You can see our quilt hanging back here. And when you put the blocks together, you get this really nice kind of V in the center. And we really think that looks like a beard. So here you've got it here in the center. That really looks like a beard to us. And then right above the beard, we've got a cute little half square triangle here and a half square triangle here. That looks like a bow. The fabric line is absolutely beautiful. It just really lended to the name Beards and Bows. You've definitely got the plaids up here for the guys. You've got the florals for the girls. And you've got a nice mix here of the little birds and the little sayings, love quotes. They are so cute. She did such a great job with this fabric line. Like I said, we were so blessed to be a part of this, and I hope that you were able to assemble your block as we did. This is so stiff. I used so much starch. And if you have any questions or if you need clarification at all on how to put this block together, please comment down below. I would love to help y'all out with this. And if you post on social media your blocks, we would love to see them as well. Post and use the hashtag KiaBQuilting, and we would love, love, love to see your creations. Well, thank you all so much for joining us in the hive today. We hope you enjoyed this tutorial with our Beards and Bows quilt for our Doohickey Designs Shari Butler blog tour. Thank you all so much, and we will see you next time.